Fiancee, 27F, smashed my 29F, fathers and late cat's urns during an argument. I am beyond furious and have to leave the house before losing myself. We are two women who have been in a relationship for 7 years and got engaged a year ago. My fiancé, whom I will refer to as Anne, 27 years old, and I, 29 years old, purchased a flat together after our engagement. Prior to that, we lived together for 4 years. We are not currently planning our wedding because both of us are focused on advancing our careers and achieving a more stable situation first. For some context, she is a surgeon currently in training, while I work as an engineer for a veterinary technology company. Our lives and careers are quite demanding, and we are both ambitious. Additionally, we do not plan to have children, so raising kids is not in our future. Overall, our relationship has been quite solid, except for one challenging period during the pandemic. It was an incredibly difficult time for Anne. She could not return home for an extended period, and like everyone else, I was confined to my home. I took on all household responsibilities and prepared her meals to take to work. During this time, both her mother and brother contracted COVID-19, and she was unable to visit them. In a safer window, I made the drive to Scotland to support my future mother-in-law and assist her in managing her treatment while her brother was in quarantine. I even covered a month's rent for my brother-in-law and his wife when they both lost their jobs. Fortunately, both my mother-in-law and brother-in-law recovered 2 months later. Throughout the pandemic, Anne often expressed her stress towards me. I dislike conflict and prefer to avoid it. When tensions rose, I would raise my hands and request a timeout so we could both take a step back and calm down before having a rational discussion about our issues. This is my typical approach, and Anne is aware of it. However, during the pandemic, she was relentless with her criticism and complaints. Even the smallest inconvenience set her off. Every minor issue spoiled her day, and unfairly, it all became my fault. I recognized that her life was exceptionally tough during that time. Like many healthcare employees, she was severely overworked, underpaid, and stretched thin, unable to see her family while also facing the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. I attempted to be as supportive as possible, often accepting her harsh words and breakdowns without much response. I grew up with a very critical mother, so I had honed the skill of pretending to listen, letting her words enter one ear and exit the other. When things became too overwhelming, I would try to escape. In those moments, I couldn't go for walks anymore, restricting my options for leaving, so I often locked myself in the bathroom. Anne would shout various names at me from the other side of the door, her favorite being coward, which was an invitation for a confrontation. Eventually, she would cool down, and I would remind her that she couldn't treat me like a punching bag. She would apologize, and we would have adult conversations to resolve our issues. For a time, things would improve, but eventually, she would find reasons to yell at me again. During the pandemic, I also lost my job when the company I worked for went bankrupt. Towards the end, I found a new position that I genuinely enjoy. As the pandemic gradually subsided, our relationship with Anne improved once more. She managed to take a 2-week break, and since my new job had yet to commence, we enjoyed a lovely romantic holiday. There were still occasions when she returned home in a bad mood from work and vented her frustrations on me, albeit less frequently. This all changed, however, on Valentine's Day after the pandemic when she expressed her remorse in a heartfelt letter, thanking me for my support during that stressful time and for assisting her family with their issues. Her brother and sister-in-law had also reimbursed the rent, and everything seemed to be back to normal. This led me to propose to her last year, to which she said yes, and we purchased the flat together. In my home office, I have a sturdy cabinet secured to the wall with glass doors to store books and display my Lego collection. On top of that cabinet is my father's urn. He passed away when I was young, alongside 3 smaller urns that contain the ashes of my deceased cats. I secured the urns with double-sided tape, and my father's urn is further supported by a metal plaque that is screwed into the shelf. My mother had previously kept that urn in our family home. A bit of background: I am from Hong Kong and raised by Chinese parents. My mother still resides with my paternal grandmother, who is my father's mother. My mother chose not to remarry after my father's passing and has cared for her in-laws since. She has been in a long-term relationship with a widower, too. My grandmother, who is approaching 100 years old, suffers from Alzheimer's and has mobility issues. She tends to wander off at night, trying to leave the house and often running into furniture. On one occasion, she knocked over my grandfather's urn and spilled the ashes as if they were birdseed, nearly toppling a shelf of urns in the process. Thus, my mother asked me to take my father's urn to the UK for safekeeping. Though it may seem morbid, with her boyfriend holding British citizenship, my mother's plan was to retire in the UK with him once my grandmother passed away, allowing her to be close to me without living with us, thankfully. So, I transported the urn and kept it safely atop the shelf with my late cat's urns. Yesterday, I worked from home while Anne's car was at the garage for new tires. She finished work at 7 p.m. When I arrived at the hospital to pick her up, she texted me, saying she would be late due to incidents nearby. I had witnessed the aftermath of one when driving there. That morning, I had a video conference meeting with someone overseas at work and had to be up by 4 a.m. to prepare for it. I waited at a nearby pub until 11 p.m., sipping soda and eating food, unable to get in touch with her because she was likely busy in surgery. At 11 p.m., I decided to head home and texted her to let her know I would be taking a taxi back. I left the car keys with her coworker, who placed them in her locker in case she needed my car to drive home. Before bed, I texted her a good-night message. Within 2 hours, I was awakened by her entering the bedroom, slamming the door and staring at me with fury, accusing me of abandoning her in the parking lot. She knew I had a 5 a.m. meeting since the previous 3 days. What else could I have done sleep in the car? She began yelling and swearing at me again, claiming I had broken her trust, that I should have waited for her, leaving her alone in the dark, that I didn't support her career, and more. She woke me around 2:45 a.m., insisting I sit on the toilet lid while she showered so that she could continue her lecture and yell at me. She wouldn't even allow me to speak. I was so drained and exhausted that I lacked the energy to defend myself and kept apologizing. An hour and a half later, I told Anne I needed to prepare and asked if we could discuss this when I returned. She wouldn't let me leave, physically blocking the front door and pushing me back, practically daring me to fight her, saying things like, "Fight back, you coward," and "You don't walk away from me." I backed off, raised my hands, and turned away toward the terrace door. There's an alternative access point to the elevator from the terrace. It's a somewhat unusual layout, but my office has a door leading to the terrace, and from there another door leads to the elevator hallway. I simply wanted to exit the flat, assuring myself that in an hour or two, Anne would have calmed down. This pattern had become frustratingly predictable. I walked toward my office, and she followed and at some point picked up my tablet and threw it at me. It missed its target. I don't believe she intended to hit me but merely wanted to make noise to gain my attention. Instead, it struck the cabinet in my office, shattering the glass door. The impact caused the 2 tallest shelves to dislodge, cracking several items and sending all the books tumbling down. The cabinet fell from the wall, pulling out nails and creating holes, resulting in everything crashing down. The urns were scattered everywhere. My father's urn shattered before it even reached the ground. Anne attempted to catch them with me, but it was too late. Ashes from my father and my 3 cats now covered my entire office. I was both furious and heartbroken, an intensity of anger I had never experienced before. As I write this, my body still trembles with rage. I completely lost my composure at that moment, forcefully pushing Anne out of the office while she attempted to apologize. She clung to the door frame, and what began as a struggle escalated as I removed her fingers one by one before slamming the door so hard that it detached from its hinges. I screamed at her to be quiet, not wanting to hear anything further. I collected as many ashes as I could into a bag and left the house without saying another word. I went to work a mess, carrying the bag of ashes in my coat. I completed my tasks and took the remainder of the day off. From the ashes, there was no way to distinguish who was who based on my research thus far. I purchased 4 new urns and divided the ashes among them. It wasn't just about my father. My cats meant everything to me during my childhood, my sole companions in a country where I knew no one, and struggled with my father's death. Now, I find myself in a hotel, unable to sleep, not wanting to return home, turning off my phone to avoid Anne's incessant calls and texts. My coworker informed me that Anne arrived at the office during lunch, bringing food and searching for me. I felt as though I might scream at any moment, wanting to smash my windows. Even after some time, my hatred for Anne is intense. I understand I made a mistake by leaving her stranded at 2 a.m., placing her in a vulnerable situation in the city, but that does not excuse her throwing my urns around. I do not wish to end our relationship. I love her, and aside from this issue, we are generally good together. However, I am unsure how long I can endure a relationship where, during her emotional moments, she provides no space, continually pressing me into confrontations and demanding we resolve matters in an aggressive manner. I thought she had changed after the pandemic, but I now fear this is her response to stress and pressure. I have never acted violently before, and I realized that in that moment, Anne was genuinely frightened of me. It was as if something broke within me, transforming my body into a furnace. Had I not left the house quickly, I might have struck or hit her. Anne called my mother at dawn in her time zone, crying over the ashes and apologizing, so now my mother knows, and she is furious with both me and Anne because I was supposed to safeguard my father's urn from my grandmother, yet I failed. Furthermore, Anne's mother, brother, and sister-in-law have been constantly messaging me, seeking me out on Facebook to apologize on her behalf and urge me to come home. I informed my future mother-in-law that I was in a hotel and needed peace and quiet, requesting she convey this to Anne, so no one would worry. My mother-in-law respected my wishes and hasn't bothered me since. I may extend my hotel stay for another day. I am uncertain of what to do. My frustration flares up each time I recall that moment, but I also feel sadness and heartbreak because I do not want to end this relationship. However, it seems like the right choice if she doesn't change her behavior when faced with stress and instead takes it out on me. I am truly in a mess, and I suppose I just wanted to vent. Summary: my fiancée transferred her stress onto me during the pandemic as a doctor and often leaves me with no space during her emotional outbursts, leading to scream fests. I prefer to step away until things calm down, but an incident escalated to her throwing a tablet, which shattered my father's urn and the urns of my 3 beloved cats. Now, I'm staying in a hotel, feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. Story 2. Aita. Horrible falling out with a really close friend due to miscommunication. Can it still be called miscommunication or lack of information? This will be a lengthy post, primarily comprised of messages. Context before anything. Person A is a close friend mentioned earlier. Person B is A's friend, and I know him through A. Person C is B-to-Kes situationship, which has no label. Person X is irrelevant to the story. C-to-Kes celebration occurs on the same day as A's, but I was unaware of this. Now, onto the actual events. I, female to male, teenager, have been friends with Person A, female, teenager, for the past 2 years, along with our entire friend group, which consists of 5 people in total. During the first week of February, I was with A and B, male, teenager. I was under the impression that A would not host a celebration, as she stated last month and did not provide any further updates. I joked to B that he would have to dance at A's celebration, to which he laughed and agreed. Fast forward to the next week, A confronted me because B took my comments seriously. She expressed that I had no right to make such a joke, claiming it would be highly uncomfortable for B to dance at her celebration, especially considering C-to-Kes celebration is on the same day. She insisted that I should at least apologize. I remained silent throughout this entire mess, trying to gather my thoughts. A few seconds after she finished, I opted to stand up and isolate myself for a while, reflecting on my actions and questioning why she didn't just directly communicate her discomfort to him. The following days involved messages and paragraphs exchanged at various times, which I can list below. Messages in quotation marks are mine, while A indicates hers. Sorry, A. I do not accept apologies in messages or apologies without valid reasons. Apologies without valid reasons. Yet that was the single word you wanted to hear from me earlier. It was in response to a situation that didn't originally warrant my apology, nor your anger, as you could have simply communicated to B that you felt uncomfortable. Besides saying, it's uncomfortable and embarrassing to even ask B, what else is at stake here? Appearances? A. Yes, A. And again, I assume you didn't interpret my last message correctly. I do not accept apologies, or in this case, feeble arguments in messages. Right, of course, Because who would be in their right mind to interpret messages properly when you reminded me of unfortunate events from my past? The same suffocating feeling I had when I was around X irrelevant to the story was present with you. It is important to note that between these two messages, we were part of a collaboration from which we finally received feedback on that day. I shared the screenshot in our group chat, and it went like this. Anyways, that's all. I will return to some important matters, something along the lines of not accepting apologies online. Keep it up. You will get there. I don't know about you, chat, but that just sounded incredibly condescending and sarcastic from my end, and it is not beneficial at all. Help you with what exactly? Are you asking for it? Perhaps before you tell me this, understand that what you have been through explains your actions and words, but it does not excuse them. After a weekend of silent treatment on both sides, the following messages occurred the subsequent week, or rather, present time as I am posting this. I just want to express my side. I was under the impression that your celebration would not proceed. I had been asking for updates, and the last thing you mentioned was that it was not continuing. The jokes I made to be that day were merely meant to be humorous, as I thought the celebration wouldn't happen. It was just playful banter. I did not know, nor did you provide any further updates regarding the celebration. The day I discovered it was still happening, what a surprise, honestly, is when you became upset with me. I was completely uninformed. I couldn't respond either because, 1, thanks for triggering my repressed memories about X. Gotta love breaking down at school, it's such fun. I still hold a grudge for that, and 2, I was reflecting on everything, and you never updated anything after saying your celebration wouldn't continue. Sure, I am in the wrong for joking around with him. Fine. But you're also at fault for not communicating with B after I made that comment. You could have easily said, I don't feel comfortable with you dancing at my celebration. You can still come, especially considering Sitak's debut is on the same day. It just feels strange. Is that okay? But no, you didn't. You escalated a situation that didn't need to be taken to this level, as I mentioned in my previous message. Neither did you attempt to approach me regarding the intent behind my message, whether it was merely humor or something more. Instead, you assumed it was serious. Do you genuinely believe I would invite people to your celebration? I may struggle with interpreting context clues and tones in real life or online, but I am not foolish. Take your time deciphering this or whatever you've been saying to me. Be rational and read through this thoroughly. Good luck. Oh, wait, hold on, what was it you were saying to me? Oh, right, keep it up, you will get there. Hello? After reading this, I would like to reiterate that I do not accept feeble arguments sent in messages, nor a paragraph without a proper apology. Be sure to decode the last message so we may improve our understanding. Be sure to keep up. Improve our understanding. But if you can see, which I'm certain you can, you have 2 eyes, it feels remarkably one-sided. Oh wait, let me check who is actually trying to communicate and who is simply repeating the same thing after days. You even went into the group chat to say the same thing. Learn to interpret what I sent, where I only stated my side, and you can provide your perspective whenever it's most convenient. Then maybe we can proceed with the understanding and decoding as you put it. And if you still refuse to do so because you don't wish to accept feeble arguments, then at this point, I just won't expect anything, lol. Hello. After reading this, I would like to repeat I do not accept feeble arguments sent in messages, as well as a paragraph without an effective apology. Be sure to decode the last message so we may improve our understanding. Be sure to keep up. Note, yes, it was literally just a copy-paste. Thank you for proving my point. I am asking for your side so I know how to apologize properly to you, but apparently you do not want to so. And we both know I'd rather not deliver a half-hearted apology unless that's what you truly want from me. In that case, sorry. But until you share your side, I won't know how to approach the apology appropriately. Do you actually want to? Keep it up, you will get there. And besides, I understand you want an excuse, not an apology. Please recognize the difference. Otherwise, there wouldn't be these feeble arguments. At that point, I decided to delete the chat. It doesn't erase it for both of us, just my copy. And now I'm considering distancing myself from the friend group, even though the other 3 were not directly involved. This conflict is solely between A and me. Am I the antagonist for trying to distance myself, or for attempting to communicate with A? What could I have done differently? Any assistance and advice would be genuinely appreciated, as I feel quite lost at the moment.